What up, podcast world?
What's up, everybody?
You know what it is? You know where you're at. It's the follow through with Clips. Drew, the True Players Podcast, episode 314. Drew is back from jet setting across the United States, back from NYC. I'm so jealous you went to the Knicks game. I do want to talk about the Knicks here in a minute, but how was your trip, buddy? You have a good time?
Yeah, man, it was a great trip. First time that I've been back to New York City since college. So I want to say 19 or 20. So it's about 14, 15 years ago now since I've been back. And it was just a really, really cool trip. We went for about 5 days, which is like, honestly, it's like a minimum amount of time.
That's too long.
No, because I hate the, I'm a big boy, right? So getting on a 5-hour flight and having that happen, two flights happening like for 5 hours in short conjunction, like, right next to each other is just brutal. We did a trip, folks from the listeners on the podcast will remember I went to Georgia and we did that in 4 days. I was wiped out. But so it was nice to tack on a fifth day for this. And yeah, man, we did a lot. We stayed with my sister-in-law and her fiance. So Boston Ben, I was kicking it with Boston Ben, and they live in Hoboken. So they don't live right in New York City, but it's so fucking close, dude. It's so close. You get on a train for 12 minutes and you're right in Manhattan, Midtown. And we ate really well. We got the first night in, we ate pizza, which is exactly what I wanted. It was so good. I crushed so much pizza. And then we were able to, in that first night, watch the Nuggets take care of business against the Celtics with, me and Boston Ben. It was a 10 p.m. tip-off, so I was wide awake because that's 7 p.m. for me, and Ben was like struggling. Plus, that his team ended up losing in the fourth quarter.
Oh, nice.
And Tatum had a shit performance, but Jaylen Brown was great. Anyway, so we got to watch that. I did a decent job of trying to stay on top of the actual basketball that was going on outside of the Knicks game that I did attend, which was incredible in many ways, but was able to watch that Nuggets Celtics game and really hammer home exactly what we were talking about on the last podcast about how the Celtics, the Nuggets are just like really tough matchup for the Celtics. The Jokic, even though for 3 quarters of that game, it looked like the Celtics might be in control, lo and behold, the fourth quarter rolls around and the Nuggets execute and they get the W. But also had the next morning had the classic bagel and cream cheese. Like that was like my first breakfast. I wanted like a good bagel, cream cheese, and that's the mecca of it, New York, of course, Hoboken. So destroyed a giant. This is the biggest bagel I've ever had in my life, which was delicious. Then we got to pop in on Friday. That was my second day there, to the Barstool offices, Clips, which was a lot of fun. Got to pop in there, and Boston Ben does work for Barstool, which is how I got the invite, and got to mob around, meet some folks, meet some content creators, see the offices, take a couple pictures, rummage through. They have this like giant barrel of free shit that nobody touches. It's almost like trash, but it's like free merch and stuff, all of which did not fit me, nor was it of any fandom that I would abide by. But that was a super cool experience. And then we on that night we got to see a play. Went to go see the Book of Mormon on Broadway, which I had not seen before. It's been around forever. So that was really fucking hilarious. The South Park creators created that play, and it's definitely not politically correct. I'm not the most politically correct guy. I try to pick my spots, of course, but that shit was pretty outrageous and hilarious. And then really, the big, night, the big day was Sunday. Like that was the day that Liverpool, my favorite soccer team, was playing against Manchester City. So got to go watch that at a pub, and a lot of fans were out there, which was very, very cool. And that was the afternoon that started at like noon. And then we finished that night with the Knicks and the Sixers game, which was incredible. We got to walk. We had a little meal kind of close to MSG, and then walked to MSG. So I got to like the full kind of New York City experience, where I'm walking into the Garden, seeing all the lights, on the buildings next to it. They all light up, orange and blue. And it was pretty surreal, man, getting to walk in at the street level, and you take those escalators up, and you just keep going, and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, this is where it's like the 10th floor. This is where the court is, which is also kind of cool. And then, dude, we had some great seats. So shout out to Boston Ben, who hooked up the seats. Really great sight lines in that building. And I got to be honest, man, when we sat down, we got there, probably 10, 15 minutes prior to tip. It was a little overwhelming to be in that building for the very first time, a building that I have seen on TV thousands of times. Like, I've watched so many Big East and ACC and obviously at Knicks NBA games take place in that building. For me to sit down in that arena and just like kind of soak it all in was nearly emotional for me. I didn't get emotional, but I was close. I mean, that's the fucking Mecca, man. So it meant a lot for me to be in that building. It unfortunately turned out to be one of the worst games in the entirety of this NBA season. One of the worst games I've ever seen on TV or otherwise, NBA games, and the lowest scoring Knicks game at home since like 2018. So the joke that I made as we were leaving the arena was like, I checked a lot of boxes off my list here. Got to go to Madison Square Garden for the first time. Got to see Jalen Brunson. I got to see a Knicks All-Star play in a game in Madison Square Garden. And I got to witness a historic scoring night. It just turns out that the history books are on the lower side here. It's a historically bad scoring night. So it was really cool. And I'd be happy to talk about the game with you, but we don't really need to because it was so garbage. But the big takeaway for me, what that experience was, being in MSG with all of the Knicks fans, even in the shittiest fucking game, they were living and dying with every shot that the Knicks took. And the willingness for this crowd to get behind this team. I know it's not the case in previous years where they may not have, this kind of roster, this kind of team, but there is a lot of belief in that arena, even when it was fucking dog shit. They scored like, both teams, I think, had like less than 50 points at halftime, less than 40 points at halftime. It was like so bad. But even despite that, Jalen Brunson would shoot a three. The whole crowd would stand up, like wait for it to drop. And of course, in this particular game, it was missing. So a lot of the times it was like, yeah, oh, and a big groan around the stadium. But you can tell how much, at least in that particular game, when the chips were down, nobody was leaving. That was the other thing, man. Like it was, for it to be against the Sixers, that's a historic rivalry as well, right? That rivalry goes back generations. And so to witness those two teams play in MSG was just a really awesome moment, even though the game was complete shit.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time. New York is definitely different. The energy in New York is totally different. The way people move in New York is totally different. And their fan base, you're so right, man. They freaking love the New York Knicks. But I don't necessarily want to talk about that game. I want to talk about the Knicks really fast because, I'm trying to think about who I want in the East. And I think the Knicks is the squad that I want, because I love everybody on that team. And I think they could potentially be the dark horse in the East. Now, look, man, they're super well coached. They got the all-star in Jalen Brunson. They weathered the storm with the injuries that they've had, right? The Randall being out and OG being out and Mitchell Robinson going down, but potentially might be coming back. Like those are three dogs coming back to the squad right before playoff starts. And it's really interesting, man. I'm starting to see why OG Anunoby's price tag was so high for so long. Like, we really didn't get it. And it's crazy. He's a plus 282, the highest plus minus of any other player in NBA history over their first 15 games with the new team. He's played 528 minutes over his first 15 games. They've outscored their opponents 282 points in those 528 minutes. That's plus 282, the highest ever. And you're like, damn, that's interesting. And then with the fact that Mitchell Robinson might be coming back, Julius is coming back. They have the glue guys on the team with Dante and with Josh Hart, who, again, let's tip our hats to Josh Hart, playing 43 minutes a night the past 8 games, and Tibbs finally sitting him down, not getting his 40 minutes the other night. But that's just insane. And how highly Tibbs talks about Josh Hart. He's like, look, this guy's not going to be an all-star. He's not going to be an MVP, but this guy does everything he possibly can to win. That's why I want him to play on the team. They've assembled just the perfect team. So I am rooting for the New York Knicks. And if you think about it, if you think about all the new the personnel that they have, they match up well with a lot of people in the East, Drew. What do you think?
Well, it is unfortunate for me that I missed OG by one game, because he came back and played the next matchup, which was 2 days later. And ironically enough, the Sixers won that first game scoring 79 points. They scored exactly 79 points in a loss the following night, which is pretty crazy. But I was really bummed that I missed OG by one night, because that was one of the guys that I was desperately trying to look at. And um, it's been really difficult to gauge how good or not these Knicks can be, because they've literally, I mean, OG missed so many games right after he had that great start, and then it was like, oh God, he's done for a long time. And Julius, I think from what I understand, he's still week to week. He's not even like day to day yet. So I still think there's a real chance that he doesn't return, or if he does, that it is a similar playoff experience to what happened last year, where he went into the playoffs with that nagging ankle injury and just never really got back to how good he was during the regular season. So I think that's the biggest problem for me when I think about where the Knicks can finish. I don't think they can make like the Eastern Conference Finals, for instance, if Julius is not a part of this team.
Definitely.
So and not just a part, but like 100% healthy. And I just don't know if he's going to get there. But there is that scrappy mentality, right? Like they embody all the Tibbs attributes, right? Tibbs culture is in full effect up there. Yeah, they can certainly on any given night, right? Especially if Josh Hart is playing like Nikola Jokic, right?
Josh had 20 points, 19 boards, 10 assists, shot 50%. That's insane.
So if he's doing that, it doesn't matter, right? Like they don't necessarily need Julius Randle if Josh Hart's performing like that, but we just know that that's a kind of an aberration for Josh Hart. As good as he is, and one of my favorite players in the NBA, he's just not going to be able to do that very consistently. But he can pop off, and so can a number of those guys. I still think, unfortunately, for the Knicks, like during this time, you would love to have seen Bogdanovich, especially Bogdanovich, the guy that you traded for, and Burks too. But you would love to have seen those guys really step up and reach their 20 points and 12 to 15 respectively for those two guys, and they have not.
No.
So I'm just curious how that's all going to meld. But having OG back is a great step in the right direction. So again, I still think they're going to fall a little bit short, but if they're all 100% healthy, if Julius can get back on the court like in the next 2 weeks and then ramp up and be right where we think he needs to be, then maybe they can do something.
And with potentially Mitchell Robinson coming back as well. So
sure.
That's a big, I'm just saying, like, for me, it's hard to not root for Jalen Brunson and for Josh Hart and for Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, I like all these guys. I love the way that they play. Tibbs is probably just like, man, this is the basketball team that I've been waiting for. You know what I mean? There's no prima donna. Probably the hardest guy on that team to deal with is Julius, right? Like, he's probably the toughest one. The other guys are probably all yes, sir, no, sir. And Julius might be the roughest one, but I think they're the ones that I'm going for. I hate the Bucks right now, even though I love Giannis and Dame. I hate them for my own personal reasons. But yeah, I like them. We don't know. It's a toss-up in the East for me because, like you said, even with the Celtics, as great as they've been playing, we've seen Jason Tatum shit the bed a lot in big games, right? And we've seen this.
He's also had incredible performances in Game 7 too. Yeah. So, but there, both sides of Tatum have definitely have happened, right? The good and the bad,
right? It's going to be a toss-up for me in the East, but Can we talk about Kawhi really fast? I promised on this show that I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Do I say that a lot? I do say that a lot.
Almost every episode.
I do. I promise I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But the weirdest thing happened the other night. Okay, the Clippers collapse once again, right? And then out of the blue, we're getting ran up on with Minnesota. And next thing, I'm like, where's Kawhi? Kawhi's not even on the bench. And then I text Drew with like, he's leaving the arena. What is going on? First of all, the Clippers collapse once again. This is happening all too often. We're blowing big leads. Bucks, Lakers, Wolves. Not only are we blowing these big leads and losing, but it seems like all we're doing is chipping away at every single game. I'm calling the Clippers the chippers now because that's all we do is chip away at leads that we blow, right? And even going down on teams in the first quarter like Houston and shit like that. This is not championship basketball. And Ty Lue said at the end of the game that we need to be mentally tough, and we're just not mentally tough. It's crazy to me how we can go up 22 on Minnesota, and I'm just feeling like, dude, we're going to run these boys out of the gym. And then Kawhi doesn't come play the second half, and it looks like we lost all of our basketball talent whatsoever. You know what I mean? You got Paul George throwing cross-court bounce pass, left-handed to Zubac in the lane, passes, turnovers, Harden turnovers. Like, it just looked like when I went on NBA Reddit, when Kawhi left the building, everybody's like, yo, this looks rigged. This looks rigged to me. Why is he leaving? I noticed in the first quarter that I know, and I told you this, Drew, I noticed him grimace after it was a jumper or something like that. Like, he made a face and I took note of it. And then next thing I know, he's leaving the bench and he's not there. So it turns out they say it's back spasms and he won't be returning to that game. And the Clippers collapse once again, get blown out by 20. And you know what's crazy, Drew, is like the Clippers had a 96.9% chance to win that game with 5:13 left in the second quarter. 97% chance. We blow that game. Minnesota had 27 more shots than we had. We had 19 turnovers for 24 points. They had 27 points in transition. They had 19 offensive rebounds. This is without Karl Anthony Towns. God, I keep wanting to call him SGA. Michael Kidd, God, what is his name? What is SGA's cousin name that blew us up?
Nikhil Alexander Walker.
Thank you. Alexander Walker. Jesus. Had the game of his life that game. And look, we're just not playing like a championship team at all. We need to figure this out really quick. And it's only going to get worse, Drew, because after tonight, we have Chicago tonight. That means we're going to have 17. The most games left in the NBA is the Clippers at 17. After our little mini series with Portland next week, we won't have any, there will be no more games with 2 days off until the end of the season on April 14th. And we're falling apart. Remember how I said we're waiting for the shoe to drop? Well, the shoe done fell off. The shoe fell off the foot because the crazy thing is now Kawhi's playing tonight, but Harden's not playing because of his shoulder. So we're falling apart. We're making really bad mental errors. We are not locked in, man. And this is what I've been scared of. And just blowing these leads has happened if this happened, once every 3-4 weeks, it happens. But we're doing this every single night. So I'm completely frustrated with the Clippers. And the whole Kawhi thing was just odd. All right. And I think the back spasms, what they said was, Kawhi was uncomfortable on the bench, didn't want to sit. He wanted to go home and rest. I've never seen anybody do that. Ever in the history of basketball have I seen anybody, and he dressed so fast. He's like, I'm getting out of here, right? So in my mind, I think something else happened. I think something happened within the family. I don't know for a fact, but I just know basketball really well. And like normally you would stay and get treatment on the back, right? Like hop in the sauna, hop in the jacuzzi, let's pause, rub it out, rub the back out a little bit. But I've never seen anybody leave. Did you find that as weird as I did?
Well, it was so shocking because look, it's not uncommon. You get something happens, you tweak something. All right, let's go back to the locker room, right? That's all right, fine. You do that. But for him to never return to the bench after playing, like he played the whole first quarter.
Right.
And so for him to never return to the bench, and then we see this footage of him just like walking out of the arena.
On, ghost.
It's one of the more perplexing things that's ever taken place in an NBA game that I can remember regarding a superstar like this. And then my first reaction to you was when I was like, maybe he had a baby, right? Because we don't know anything about his personal life. He's done a great job of keeping that under wraps. And from what we understand, he has children. So it's like, okay, well, maybe his wife or significant other, whatever it is, had a baby. And so he left because, oh, shit, there it goes. You got to go to the hospital. That was my first reaction. Anything outside of that seemed like such a random thing. And so now for the excuse to be given that it was a thoracic spasms, I don't know. I've never heard of that before today or before that happened, which I've experienced. I have had back spasms in my life. It is very debilitating. And it's to the point where if you have them, sometimes you can't even really walk anywhere, right? So you need to like lay down flat, or you need to stretch, or you need to have someone like help you like release that tension. And so from the body language that I could see, it didn't look like he was limping.
No,
he wasn't hunched over. He just left.
Like he was going to dinner, Drew. It looked like he's like, I'm kind of over this game. Like I'm gonna hit up Cheesecake, because when things happen to Kawhi like this, trust me, I was trying to read lips. I was watching how he's walking, and I'm like, he looks perfectly fine, right? To me. The crazy thing to me was how fast he goes to the locker room. They come back from commercial, and that dude is dressed and dipping. So to me, that's a family emergency. But also, It's something. And the crazy thing about that game, Drew, is like we were waxing these cats. Like I'm like, dude, we are running amok on the Minnesota Timberwolves right now. Everything is hitting. We're striking on all cylinders, and then one thing happens, and the domino collapses, and it's like it just is Kawhi that important to this squad, dude? And you know, just the way we were losing, Ant Edwards was killing us,
Yeah.
absolutely killing us, and he should. But some of these games, man, they're just inexcusable. And we're going against Chicago tonight, coming off a DeRozan OT victory last night. I think he had 47. Hopefully, they're going to be tired, but we need to get back on track here. We got to figure it out because I'm not too stoked on my Clippers right now, Drew.
Well, and I think something that we have to probably touch on too, though, Clips, is I think since our last podcast came out, in between then and now is when Karl Anthony Towns tore his meniscus. And so I think it might be valuable, while I understand your frustration with the Clippers, to talk about Minnesota and how big of a win that was from their side. Right?
Okay.
If you look at it from their angle, that's a huge comeback for them.
Huge.
And, yes, the Clippers lost Kawhi randomly, and he may not have even told anyone until he got into the locker room that he was leaving. Like, there's a good chance that wasn't communicated.
He whispered something to Ty Lue. He said something like, Ty, they were going to timeout. He whispered something to Ty, and Ty's like, all right, like, all right. And then he went to the bat, and that was it.
So taking that into consideration from Minnesota's side, there's an opportunity there, right? Clippers' best player just vacated the premises and they kept playing, right? And that's a really good testament to what the Timberwolves are, even without their, second best player in Karl Anthony Towns. So quickly, I'll just touch on the fact that, and a lot has already been said about this, but for the T-Wolves to lose their second best player in Cat, they have the perfect remedy for that. Yeah. Locked and loaded. We talked about him a lot last year. We haven't talked about him a lot this year. But what's his name, Clips?
Naz Reid, dude.
Like a full-on brain fart. But Naz Reid is the perfect backup to Karl Anthony Towns. So they really shouldn't lose much because they've done a great job in maintaining Naz Reid on that roster, and nobody else snagged him this offseason.
Idiot.
So they are in actually a pretty good position, even to move forward. If Karl can't get back at all this year, they should still be pretty formidable. And that, again, shows up with how they were able to come back against the Clippers, a team that you would have, most people would have bet on them finishing that game even without Kawhi Leonard. So the T-Wolves, obviously they're going to miss Cat, and Cat's been having a really good season for them. But it's not all lost. And interestingly enough, I think a major point about this was, if you could pick one guy, if you had to choose one guy of the starting five of the T-Wolves to get injured, you would probably choose Karl Anthony Towns as the guy that you would remove from the lineup because of the existence of Naz Reid. If you lose Gobert, that's a whole nother story, and that's very difficult. That's the anchor of the defense. You can't lose Ant Edwards because he's the leader of the team. He's the best player on the team. He's the number one scoring option and can be quite good defensively. You don't want to lose Conley and his leadership. And, not enough is being talked about our guy McDaniels, but, he's super solid from them on the wing. Great 3-and-D, good slasher. And they don't really have necessarily another guy behind him. They'd have to go to like Kyle Anderson. And that's a completely different look to have Kyle Anderson in the starting lineup instead of McDaniels. So all in all, not the worst possible news, even though it's really bad, not the worst possible news for the T-Wolves. And that was a big win for them to maintain the 3, which is why, again, I'll just wrap it up with the Clippers side. Losing that game in that fashion was really bad because you really could have maintained that gap, closed that gap to the 3 seed, as opposed to having to sit right now where you are in the 4.
Yeah, and I don't know what we're trying to do. Back to what you're saying about Naz Reid, it is a complete luxury to have that dude on your team. And that's all I kept saying. That was the word I kept saying watching the game. Like, what a luxury to have this guy as your backup center and now your starting center. Obviously, he's probably better against the second teams and whatnot, but you could throw him in the starting lineup. The guy spreads the floor. He plays hard, knows his role. He's cheap. Like, I wanted him so bad. And the other side of this is like, all right, we're going to see if we can continue to win without Karl Anthony Towns. You know what I mean? Can we put Naz Reid in the starting lineup and use that $200 million that we're going to have to pay Cat and trade? You know what I mean? Cat's been on the trading block. I'm throwing air quotes for a long time. We'll see if they can weather the storm too. But I don't know what we're doing as far as seeding goes, because like the last team I want to see is the Pelicans,
And they're in
right?
the 5, yeah.
I don't want to see the Pelicans at all. So, like, are we trying to get the 3rd spot, or are we trying to drop to 6? I don't know what we're doing, dude. I don't know if this is a grand. I want to think it's like this grand scheme of Ty Lue, right? That we're always thinking he's thinking about matchups. I just don't know, man. I don't know.
You're kind of in the middle right now, because you're 3 games behind the T-Wolves after that loss, and you're 2.5 games up on the Pelicans in the 5. So you're kind of in this weird, like, you're kind of almost locked into the 4 as of right now. I mean, there's a lot of time left, obviously. A lot of time left, 17 games, as you talked about. Most
But
of these
either
teams
way,
have about 16 or 15.
if we're 5 or 4, we're still going to see the Pelicans at the end of the year. It don't matter. We just don't.
That's very true. And then, it does get a little slippery if you start to fall all the way down, and the Pelicans, they recently lost the game, but if they start winning and Sacramento continues to win, Dallas continues to win, Phoenix, it's only 4 games back from the 8 seed that you guys are. So it's all right there.
Look, we are trending downward right now. We got to right the ship, dude. We got to right the ship. And again, not everything can be perfect all year, right? Like all teams are going to go through lulls. You're not going to be as great as we were through December and January. It just doesn't. You can't keep that up. But you can't blow these leads like we're doing, man. And part of that has to be Ty Lue too. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I just expect more from Paul George. I'm excited. Zubac's getting his legs back. Norm, the air fryer, has been just absolutely insane. If he's not 6 man of the year this year, if there's one thing the Clippers do well, it's produce 6 men of the year. Like, that's what the hell we do. We might not have
very true.
but we can churn out some 6 man of the years, bro. I promise you. All right, I'm done with the Clippers. I got to bring something up that I find hilarious, and it makes me so pissed off. But the Kobe statue has typos, Drew. Like, you had one job, was this statue. And it's like a scene out of SNL, bro. Like, you couldn't write this any better. So, first of all, I can't believe it went through upper management, proofreading, Genie, like whoever proofread this thing needs to be fired. Drew. And you know what's crazy is, like, Von Wafer didn't have a great NBA career, but at least, like, your legacy will be solidified on this statue for the remainder of your life. You can take your kids there, and you take your kid there, and it says Vom Wafer, right? Vom Wafer. And then, Toronto Raptors, okay? Jose Calderon, who's famous. We all know how Jose Calderon. He's Jose Calderson. How do you get that name? Obviously, whoever did this statue does not watch basketball at all. And then the coach's decision, which we went Spanish because now it's coach's decisión. Coach's decisión is on there. Come on, man.
Which is so funny because there's 2 of them. One on top of the other, and one is spelled correctly. Which is the craziest part. Like, the first one's spelled right, and right underneath, that one is spelled incorrectly, which is just mind-blowing because the guy just carved out the other one. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. It is wildly ridiculous that nobody caught this, right? And look, okay, the good news is I think you should be able to just remove that particular plaque off of the base of the statue and replace it. That really shouldn't be that big of a problem. It shouldn't be that hard to do, but it is so fucking dumb. The details. And this is maybe the bigger part about my Lakers right now is, like, sometimes we're missing these little details, right? This actually might be a nice analogy for the Lakers basketball team, is how the statue was released and produced. Now, I will say, as far as the statue goes, I don't have any problems with the statue itself. I think Kobe looks fine. Everything looks good. But to miss not just one, it would be one thing if it was like, oh shit, it's Calderson. Or Vom. We put Vom instead of Vaughn. Like, oh fuck. All right. Well, that sucks. But for there to be 4 very obvious typos, I just don't understand. I don't understand how this happened.
Why did it also take 3 weeks to catch him? What Laker fans are reading this statue and you're like, oh yeah, Vom Wafer, that guy was a good Laker. I remember him on the squad.
Dude, Florida State, baby. Florida State. Von Wafer, man. He had a hell of a run at Florida State.
He was a hooper.
Yeah.
Jose Calderon was a stone cold baller.
Led the NBA. He led the NBA in free throw percentage for like 2 seasons. He was like 90%.
Unbelievable. It just, I was so upset, but it's like the thousands of people that have walked past that statue and it takes a month to figure out. It was just like somebody walking by being like, I don't remember a Vom wafer on the team.
Oh, I would have remembered that name. Yeah.
Oh, that's got it. Do you want to bring anything up about your Lakers right now? Because I
Well,
know
yeah, I alluded to it a little bit, and luckily, as I was visiting New York, I was able to catch their games. That is the nice part about being on West Coast time in the East Coast. It's like I was up until 2 a.m. like every night, and was able to very comfortably watch all these late night games, including the Lakers. And we had some really incredible performances while I was away. I mean, D'Angelo Russell single-handedly beating the Milwaukee Bucks and dropping 44
huge
points.
game.
And then doing it like the way that he did it in the very end of that game was remarkable. The best game he's ever played in the Lakers jersey, hands down. I think he also had like 11 assists or something like that. He had just a really solid performance in a win. And give me two shakes here. And so not only did D'Lo drop that game was without LeBron, and Milwaukee had their whole crew. Giannis was there, Dame was there. So that was like a really awkward win, maybe more telling about the status of the Bucks than the Lakers. But for us to win that game was absolutely tremendous. We need all the wins we can get right now, especially as Denver, lo and behold, they have claimed the number 1 seed in the West. What a shocker. But, within a week, they went from the 4 seed to the number 1 seed. And I don't think they're turning around anytime soon. I think they're going to now finish in the 1 seed, which is the nightmare for my Lakers team. So we have this incredible win against the Bucks. And then we also have played the T-Wolves. And we struggled to beat them. LeBron was back for that game. That was a real struggle for us. And they didn't have anyone playing for that game. They had I think Anna Edwards was playing, but nobody else was, no Gobert, nobody else was playing for them in that game. And we still struggled to beat them, but we did win it. And that was a big one too. And then of course we run into our worst nightmare. This is insane to me. It remains this way, but the Sacramento Kings have our fucking number. Just like the Pelicans seem to have your Clippers.
I was gonna say, do you think Valanciunas is AD's Sabonis? Valanciunas is Zubac's. Wait, how do I phrase this properly? Valanciunas, to take it back. Keep going. We'll edit this one out.
Okay. We end up playing a really pivotal game. After those 2 big wins, we have those are monumental wins for us against good teams. We end up playing a very, very important game against the Sacramento Kings, right? And just for all those folks that are trying to pay attention to the standings and where we rank, the Lakers still sit in the 9 seed right now. We were like a half game back from Dallas, and a game and a half, 2 games back from the Kings. So this was a massive win for the Kings to propel them. They're now in the 6th seed, right? They're tied with Phoenix, but they have the tiebreaker there. So the Kings have vaulted themselves in the 6th seed. The Lakers stay in the 9. And this is so important, as I mentioned, because Denver is going to be the 1 seed. In my opinion, they're just not going to stop. They're going to be the 1 seed. Now, that's our only hope. If we stay in the 9 or the 10, we have to beat whoever it is that's going to be in that grouping. And then we have to beat another team just to get the 8 seed to go play in Denver in the first round, which is the thing we've wanted to avoid this entire season. So for us to drop this game against Sacramento and really Sabonis, I mean, there's been so many memes about it. I mean, we even had a video from LeBron just driving down the 5 freeway at 1 a.m., just in his feels,
listening to Sade or whatever. He was in his feelings. Oh yeah.
And it turned out to be just that third quarter really was the major difference there. But just I don't know what it is about Sabonis.
He's physical, man. He's physical.
Yeah, but it's the weirdest thing though, because against other bigs, right? Anthony Davis is one, but against other bigs, he actually tends to not perform very well, right? He doesn't do this great against dominant post players because he's too small. But for some reason or another, he just he knows what AD likes to do, and he knows how to get underneath him and around him on the offensive side. And I mean, he just gobbles up rebounds. The guy had 19 rebounds, and I neglected to mention that AD had 25 the other night. So This is not a guy who's AD's been having a great rebounding season. So for him to be just really owned it was shocking. And it's been a pattern now for this whole season and a little bit going into last season as well. But for us to lose that really pivotal game kind of takes the wind out of my sails right now, because I was feeling riding high, right? Like I said, those two previous wins were not expected, to be quite frank. We were not expected to win those games. So anyway, disappointed, I would say, definitely. I mean, LeBron had a rough night as well. Austin Reeves was on fire to start the game, and he finished with 28 points, which was great. But again, the roller coaster of D'Angelo Russell. He has 6 points in this game, not great. LeBron 18 points on 6 of 16 shooting, not great. AD still had 22 and 10, but it just didn't feel like he had 22 and 10 when you watched that game. It was just not a great performance. So now, you know, the Lakers, as we are looking in, we have 67 games played, so we have 15 games left. Still plenty of time for us to catch Dallas, who's in the 8th seed above us. We're a game and a half behind them, and 3 games, 2.5 games behind Dallas, and 3 games behind Sacramento and Phoenix in the 6 and 7. So there's still time for us. We have games that are coming up that we can try and win, and we should be, actively, trying to win every single game. We can no longer play around here. Now our goal has to be we have to finish in the 7 or 8 seed to give ourselves an opportunity to be the 7 seed, right? So now this is what the game is to me. The game is avoid the Nuggets, right? This is the game that most teams should be playing in the NBA. Yeah, to hide the Nuggets, So as we look down the stretch, let me just go in real quick here. We have a massive game against Golden State coming up. That is in 2 days. So we have a couple days of rest, which is nice. Maybe we can regroup after that loss. But we have Golden State coming up, Atlanta, Philly, Indiana. Those 4 games right there are a huge stretch for us. We cannot lose any of those games, in my opinion. We need to run the table on those 4. Then let's regroup. We'll see where we are in the standings. Let's see how much closer we may have gotten to that 8 seed. But now it's do or die, Clips. This is where I'm at, and I don't know what to expect. Every time the game tips off, I just don't know what to expect out of this Laker team. We can take down one of the best teams in the NBA. Yes, we can. Can we lose to one of the more mediocre teams in the NBA? Absolutely. We can definitely do that too. So I am nervous. It's how I would describe. It's how I would describe my current state as I analyze the Lakers. And look, honestly, as long as we avoid Denver, that's one thing. But hopefully, we'll avoid the Kings in the postseason too. Because if it comes down to it, bro, they seem to not give a fuck about us.
They're definitely not scared. And I know Herter wasn't playing in that game. Keon Ellis got the start, who looked really good. He's actually played the start of the last 5 games, if I'm not mistaken. You brought up Dallas. They're playing OKC tonight. No Luka. Gafford, my boy Gafford, going for an NBA record tonight. He's got 33 field goals in a row without missing. He's about to beat Wilt if he can get to 36, which is just crazy when you think about that.
Yeah.
But with the Sabonis AD thing, they asked Sabonis about it after the game, and he's like, "Can you guys are the only ones that talk about it? Can you stop bringing up the 10-0? Like, all you're doing is lighting a fire under Anthony Davis's ass." But it's like, if you're 10-0 against Anthony Davis, there's no fire lit under that dude's ass. So I'm as nervous as you are, both of our teams, because if we keep playing like we're playing, we will be in the play-in. Like, it's simple as that. It's these games are so close that there's just no margin for error right now. And I understand the Clippers obviously have a little more cushion than the Lakers do, but I just don't know who I want to see in the playoffs. Like, I think I'd rather see Luka. Like, I'd want to see Luka, or maybe I want to see a catless Minnesota, because these guys have been talking a lot of shit, and maybe we beat them once. They beat us 3 times, but I just don't know, man. It's a month away. The playoffs start in a month.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm loving it. We're getting right down to it, and this is really where it feels like every single one of these games matters. If your team is in the playoff hunt, right? If your team's dog shit, then the whole season's kind of a waste. But
right.
if you're one of those 20 teams that are in the 1 through 10 seeds on either side, this is crunch time, baby. This is where you got to nut up or shut up as we get ready to ramp into the postseason. But yeah, man, I'm really, really hoping that we can pull this shit together and bang out. All 4 of those games that I mentioned are at home. So this is why, again, that's why it's very important. We have 4 straight home games, and all 4 have to be wins, because immediately after that we go on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game road trip
to finish the season.
Yeah, I mean, well, not really, because we
Almost.
end. Then there's still, whatever, 6 games left after that. But yeah, it's a big moment for this team right now, and to see if we actually have what it takes to do something here.
You know what's crazy is we're talking about the playoffs starting in a month, right? And a month ago from today, we had the All-Star game, right? And during the All-Star game, Adam Silver did a conference and whatnot, and said he noted in that conference, he noted that injuries were down this season for the NBA. And I'm like, you know what? That just doesn't sound right. So I want to go through a couple things, man. Trae Young has finger surgery. Patrick Williams suffered left foot injury, ending his season. Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, Russell Westbrook, left hand injuries. Tyrese Maxey, concussion. Tari Eason, surgery. Ben Simmons, out for the season. Karl Anthony Towns, meniscus. Tyler Hero, right foot tendonitis. Benny Mathurin, out for the season. Sengun, who I had a whole piece ready for this show. Drew, you know how much I love Alpi. And I had a whole piece ready for the show, and he went down with the worst injury of the season. I could barely watch it.
No, I could not. I turned it off, and I wouldn't watch replays. Turns out he's fine. Like, he's all right. Like, that's incredible to me. It's incredible to me that he didn't snap something there.
I agree. Sengun out. John Morant, season-ending shoulder surgery. Sadiq Bey, torn ACL. Kristaps, Drew, Middleton, all missed games. Evan Mobley, walking boot. OG Anunoby out for a minute. Joel Embiid out. Kawhi Leonard back spasm. Steph Curry ankle. Draymond Green out with back-to-back. Like, there is injuries, man. So I don't know what Adam Silver's talking about. I just thought that was interesting. If this is less injuries, then I don't want to know what more injuries is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wonder if he's referring to just like games missed, right? Because that would like that would make more sense to me, is if he was like he should have just said there's less games missed, not less injuries, because the guys that are injured are like, wait, what are we trying to say here? Like, what is the point that you're making? But I do think he's trying to hammer home that rule, like the 65 game rule, and I do think it's working actually. I mean, as we're heading down to the stretch, we're at game 65 and 66 for most of these teams. It seems like more guys are playing than not, which is great. I think that rule has had a good and positive effect on the status of NBA stars and going to watch games. But the problem is, you still have injuries, right? This is the problem. There's no avoiding the injuries; they just happen.
No, I think, that being said, I mean, Kawhi was at the point this season, he's played the most minutes that he's played in his whole career, like minute-wise per game, right? And you're going to get, like, Kawhi knows his body better than everybody. That's why I'm saying when he pulls himself out of the game, if he's hurt, he's hurt. Because this is what happened in San Antonio. Nobody listened to him. And he continued to be hurt and whatnot. He's just like, fuck it. If I'm not feeling right, I'm not playing, right? But at some point, you got to put oil in the car. Like, you've been playing all these minutes, something's going to happen. The back spasm's going to happen. So I think you're right with the missed games. And speaking about missing games, I just have a note here for players that are ineligible right now for awards. And, we got Joel Embiid, we got Butler, we got Julius Randle, Donovan Mitchell, Draymond Green, who wasn't winning anything, OG, Evan Mobley, who wasn't winning anything, Kristaps, Kyrie, Jamal Murray, and Bradley Beal. So those are the names that won't make All NBA. And I only think Joel, Donovan, and
maybe Jamal.
Yeah, I would probably, and he's on the cusp right now. Like,
yeah, he'd be close if he was fully out. Yeah, yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting, and so other people are going to be getting other opportunities, or other players will be on those teams.
Well, and I also think this is interesting too, because in our last podcast we were talking about, like, the competition committee is looking at ways to stiffen defense, and guess what they just did? They told the referees to swallow those whistles, bro. The refs have stopped calling a lot of shit. And so it's funny, like, we went through all these different things, like, oh, well, they can do this, or they can bring this back, or hand checking, or whatever it is. Turns out they just said stop calling fouls.
They did.
But I want to touch on this too, because I think that will translate into potentially more injuries, right? If you're going to let more contact happen, you may end up having more injuries happen, or you may end up with some altercations happening. Like in the game that I attended in Madison Square Garden, DiVincenzo tried the ankle takedown of I don't even remember who. Tobias, was it Tobias? No, Oubre. He tried the ankle takedown of Oubre. And it kind of worked. But you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's interesting to me that the answer to the question of, oh, the competition committee needs to figure out how to lessen some scoring numbers. They just sent a memo out to the refs and said, look, we're going to let them play. And pretty much across the board, every single game I've watched looks more like the NBA that I love, where you can have a little bit of contact. Not everything is a foul. So I appreciate it, but I do think it might also end up, being an issue when it comes to injuries in these last 15, 16 games for these teams.
Well, I'm looking at the numbers. You're talking about the referee swallowing the whistle per 100 possessions. So it started in October. There were 9.5 shooting fouls. November 10.3, December 10.4, January 10. All Star in February we're down to 9.6. March we're in 9. So they're not in these games. We had a bunch of games where teams are scoring 140, 150 points in these games, and now we got 80 to 86. There was super low scoring in that Knicks game you were at, if I'm not mistaken. And so maybe that was the answer to everything.
Well, I mean, it's funny because I like to bring it up too, because like I said, we threw out all these ideas, but it's just sometimes it's so simple. Sometimes the answer is just staring at you right in the face. It's right in front of your nose. And it's like, oh, what do we have to do to change the game? You don't have to do anything. Just
Let
stop
people
fucking
play.
calling these stupid fouls. You know what I mean? Like, let
Right.
people box out. Let people go for rebounds. Let people drive to the rim,
Mm.
and let the defender exist. And that's really what we were penalizing defenders for existing in the spots that they were supposed to be in, that defenses make you try to react to. So look, I'm actually all for it. And I like I say, in the last couple weeks, the game resembles what I loved about the NBA basketball games that we saw when we were growing up. And it's not, oh, I don't want it to be 85 to 90 final scores, but I do want the defenders to have the right to be in a defensive position, have the right to own the spot that they're currently standing in. And I think maybe we might be in a good spot for that.
You mean you want the defenders to be able to defend?
Yeah, play defense.
It's that simple, right? It's
Yeah.
really that simple. But
It's not
also, you're
hard.
going to get way more. Like, even watching Anthony Edwards, like, this guy's screaming and yelling on every single play that he does, at begging for the foul. We're going to get way more of those. And it's not just fouls that are going down. Technical fouls are going down. Everything's going down with the refs. And it'd be really nice to get some more insight on it. But something we always like to say, numbers don't lie. And those numbers are exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
I have a question for you really fast. I like to read into stuff a lot. I like to have reasons to not like teams, right? Like, give me one specific reason. It took Anthony Edwards talking all that shit on Minnesota for me to be like, over them. Don't want to deal with them anymore. I needed something to not like OKC, and I love SGA. Clippers pick, love him. Still pissed off he's not on our team anymore. But the other night, when he intentionally fouled Andrew Nemhard to break Kevin Durant's streak, his record, 30 points for the 48th time. It's a franchise record for the Thunder, and it's the most since James Harden in 2018, 2019. They were down 10. They found Nemhard, so he goes to the line, hits two, and then so Shea can go back and get his 30 points. And I'm just like, man, for a team that's that good, for a player that's that good, that just seemed real petty to me, man. And it's those little things that I'm like, dude, that seems childish. It seems like you're going for yourself, which obviously he was. There was nothing team related in that. This is a record that he wanted. And am I being overboard? But I don't like that. And to me, that shows me that, like, maybe you're not as good. This team isn't as good because you're not as focused on what the team is supposed to be doing. Am I going a little too far on this, or no?
No, I think there's definitely like a level of being locked in that you wouldn't expect someone in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's position, if he was fully locked in, to do something like that. But look, it is a record in its own right, and I appreciate that he wanted to go for it. It's not something brand new. We've seen guys do things like this to get triple doubles or whatever the case may be. If it's shooting threes, going for the 3-point record in a game, you just start firing them up there at the end of the end of the fourth quarter. Joel Embiid and some of these outbursts that we saw, Karl-Anthony Towns during that 1 week of the scoring mania. We've seen all of this, but I will say, it does rub me the wrong way. I think you analyzed it correctly because it's not the last game of the season. This is where I get a little bit like, dude, you got 15 games left. Like, what? You can still break this record, right? Like, or was it tied specifically to consecutive 30-point games clips, or was it just 30 points generally speaking? Because that's the thing that I'm confused about. Because if it was consecutive and like, oh, he had all these 30-point games in a row, I can maybe understand it a little bit more. But if it's cumulative, he could get it the following game and it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, yeah, which I don't think it is. It has to be consecutive because since the All-Star break, he's been averaging 31 points a game. And the record was surpassed 30 points for the 48th time in a game against the Pacers. So the 30 points, 48 games in a row, I'm assuming, right? 30 points in 48 games.
He couldn't have done that for 48 games in a row.
For the 48th time. Yeah, probably not.
We would know if he was on 30-point per game streak for 40 games. Like, that's.
But what's he averaging for the year? He's averaging 30 something for the year.
Yeah.
So that means you'd probably be doing it in consecutive games, right? If not more.
Hold on. So now
we need to fact check.
Let's go ahead and take a look.
I'm assuming if he's going through those lengths to intentionally.
That's what I mean. It must have been tied to a consecutive number, which is the only reason it makes more sense. It's still not great, but it makes more sense if it's that.
Right.
So hold on, let me pull this up. My God, the statistic. No, see, he had 23 points. He had 20 points against the Lakers on March 4th, 23 points against Memphis on March 10th. So it's not consecutive.
So then what the hell is he doing it for?
This is what I don't understand. This is the part
off even more now.
That's the part that I'm glad I took the second to look it up, because to me, the only thing that kind of would make me feel some way about it is like if he had a streak that was tied to, I have to do this on this night. And he absolutely did not. He was definitely going to be able to score 30 points or more in many of these games to come up. He's going to break that record before the season is over. So this is even more weird than we initially thought.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It makes me hate OKC even more now. Love it. And I really like those guys. I just need something, Drew. I just need something to tick me off. I think you and I both have the same final thought. So how do you want to start this final thought? Because I'm really excited to talk about this.
I think you should start us off because it is pertaining to your team.
Okay. So once again, going back to the Clippers, guys, if you did not hear, in another awesome move by Steve Ballmer and the Clippers organization on this a whole new rebrand for us going into the new arena next year, new logo, new jerseys, new everything next year. We finally we're moving our Ontario Clippers, our G League team, which has been playing in Ontario, and we are going back to our roots. We are moving back to San Diego. We are going to be the San Diego Clippers, the G League team, which I absolutely love all. And this came out of left field again, Drew. Had no idea about this. It was really tight-lipped. Moving back down to San Diego in the new arena called Front Wave Arena, which is right here in Oceanside, which is 20 minutes from me and which is right down the street from you. And I just think that this is awesome. I'm really excited to have the Clippers here. I'm really excited to go back to our roots in San Diego. Definitely these guys are going to be coming through San Clemente and seeing us for sure. I'm going to be running into these cats a lot. I just like it a lot. And I really, for whatever reason, I feel like there's some opportunity that's going to be there for Clips and Drew. There should be. Like throw a bone to your guys. Like, we live right here. We would love to talk basketball. They're going to need, I don't know if there's any G League podcasts or whatnot, but I just love it. It's another great move. It's a great logo. Great move for the Clippers. I'm really excited. And it's right in our front yard, man.
Yeah, you say it's down the street from me, and you could not be more accurate. It is literally on the same street that I turn on to get to my house. They built this thing in my backyard, Clips. If if I knew Napoleon Dynamite's Uncle Rico he could definitely throw a football from my backyard, and it would slam right into the Front Wave Arena, which is still in the middle of being constructed. So I can walk there, which is just outrageously incredible. The arena itself is super cool. I've been kind of watching it get developed without knowing what it was. Clips, this is the craziest part because it's kind of hidden behind this row of condos, and I drive the street literally all the time. I drive past this thing all the time. And so you can see it building. I'm like, man, that looks big. I don't know what that is. I don't, that doesn't seem like a normal house or, condo building. And lo and behold, we get the announcement. It comes through. My wife's like, well, look at this. Like, the Clippers are coming to San Diego. It's like, oh my God, it's Oceanside. And then I look up on the maps and I'm like, what? This is it's less than a mile from my house. So yeah, we will definitely be partaking in and well, this is the funny part. I know I'm gonna go. But the first thing that popped in my head was, will Clips actually leave San Clemente to bring your ass down to Oceanside to go see your boy and go watch this G League Clippers team as they return to San Diego, return to history? I love it.
I get a really bad rap with you guys. I get a really bad rap. You guys think I don't leave my bubble, okay? And maybe I don't. I don't have to. My home is here at the beach. My day job is 14 feet from me. My barber's here. I got an 80-inch TV to watch all my games. I got a beautiful home. I'm not trying to go anywhere. You guys give me a really hard time. But yes, the simple answer to this is yes. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
And the fact that you live right there, again, man, these guys are doing everything right. And if the real NBA basketball team, the Clippers, could actually play basketball and win some basketball games, all of this great information and all these great moves would be 10 times better. So the answer that you're looking for, yes, true. I will go. But I won't be driving my own car. I will be taking Uber because, I don't like to lose parking spaces.
Well, this is the glorious part about why I asked this question, because, we do live, 22 minutes away from each other. You've been to my house once. So It's not like there's not a precedent that has been set here.
True.
And so now, and this, I have an extra bed here for you. So if we ever go a little too hard at a G League San Diego Clipper game, we could walk our happy asses back to my house. You can just crash in the spare bedroom, and then you can take your Uber the following day. But yeah, I'm super excited, man. Not only is this going to be an amazing thing for you and I and the city of Oceanside, but this is also going to house an indoor soccer team. There's going to be concerts and comedy and community events that are going on here. So it's just big for me and where I happen to buy my house. I still don't understand how this is all taking place. Like, some things are meant to be, bro. And I was put in this house for a reason.
I agree.
Despite the fucking plumbing and the roof and all the shit we've had to fix, it is working out great. It's working out great. So I could not be more excited. And I think I might actually be one of a handful of people in the world that is a season ticket holder of a G League organization. I think I might pull the trigger on that.
Hey, let's just see how much they cost, Drew. Let's go in on it. I just think there's some lane that it's meant to be. There's a reason why I come from LA to be in San Clemente. You know what I mean? There's a reason why you're in Oceanside, why we're doing this show. Now, it might not be that interesting talking about G League players and whatnot, but it's an entrance for us. And you guys should look up the Front Wave Arena. The shit's state of the art. It's going to seat 7,500 fans. You got suites. You got top of the line everything. There's an outdoor area to hoop and to picnic and do all that shit. And it just looks like a really good time. And, there's also a thought in my head that, man, there might be a game we go to. There might be 15 people in the stands, and Clips and Drew are just toe up from the flow up. Too many beers, we might be getting escorted out of the Front Wave Arena.
We got to put in some time before we get escorted out. I don't want to go. We got to put in at least a season before we get kicked out of there. But I will say, I also am like, I harken back to like the Semi-Pro movie with Will Ferrell, and you watch that in Flint Tropics. They got 12 people in the arena, and then the one guy's sitting courtside and he brought his nachos from home, right? And then Jackie Moon says, you don't even buy the nachos from the nacho stand?" He's like, "No, I brought this from home." Like, and then he just slams the. I don't know. All of that's definitely run through my head, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun, regardless of how many people show up. It's still top level basketball, and you best believe, man, I don't care if I get season tickets or not. I'm going there for the G League Elite, right? Well, I'm going to get a great look at the G League Elite team when they come through. I don't know how many times they'll play here, but it's super cool, very exciting. And yeah, if we end up partnering with them, then that would be cool too.
Let's check the ticket on season tickets, though. Let's see what those run for, how many games we get, and if I should buy my Xavier Moon jersey right now or not, because that's our G League vet is Xavier Moon. I'm really excited for it. So All right, let's hope things turn around for Clippers and Lakers. We're obviously going to be back next week. We got our YouTube popping. Drew's coming up on Saturday. We're putting the final touches on finally putting our YouTube together. I know it's been a while, but we are a two-man operation, and it is a lot of work, guys. But we're finally getting on that bus. We're on the YouTube bus. So if you could drop us a sub button, hit subscribe. Is that what people say for YouTube?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it's coming. So it's a follow through with Clips and Drew, and we're Ghost.